What in the world is this? As I walked into my room, the sight that greeted me was utterly shocking. My room was empty, as if nothing had ever been there. Essential equipment for my job, books placed on my desk, and even the clothes and bags stored in my closet had all vanished. In this unbelievable situation, I could only stand there dumbfounded. But then I heard laughter from behind me. Turning around, I saw my sister-in-law laughing as if enjoying the situation. "Look, your room is so tidy and clean now," she said. I asked her, "Kate, what on earth is going on here?" "Go look at the garden," she suggested. Confused, I looked out the window to the garden, where I saw my belongings messily abandoned and soaked. I was speechless and overwhelmed with anger at this shocking situation. Yet, despite my anger, my sister-in-law continued to criticize me. "Aren't you ashamed of still living at your parents' house without getting married? You should become independent soon." Unable to tolerate her behavior any longer, I resolved to move forward with a plan I had been considering for a while. I am Anna Holmes, 30 years old. I work as a freelance web developer. After graduating from university, I worked in the real estate industry, but my interest in web development began when I was inspired by a colleague skilled in programming. However, at that time, I had no knowledge of web development or programming, making a career change difficult. With my family's support, I quit my job at 24 and enrolled in a programming school. I had little savings, so I moved back with my parents, who helped me with tuition, and I managed to graduate. After graduating, I immediately started my career as an independent programmer. In the beginning, I only had a few small projects, and my income was unstable. But after a year, my work was recognized, and I received more projects. Over time, I became a well-known programmer, able to support myself. I am deeply grateful for my family's support, which has allowed me to be where I am today. However, a few years after graduating, my father passed away from an illness, and months later, my mother injured her leg in a shopping accident, making it difficult for her to move around. After my father's death, my mother, living alone, found it challenging to even shop at the local supermarket and needed care. Knowing this, I decided to return home. I took on the responsibility of caring for my mother daily, paying for a helper, and covering living expenses. I made this decision to repay my parents for supporting my dream and to show my filial piety. Then, one day, my brother, who had married Kate 3 years earlier, suddenly returned home with his belongings. Surprised, I asked, "Brother, why are you here so suddenly?" Without any warning, he had crossed the threshold of our family home. "Actually, the company I was working for went bankrupt," he began to explain quietly. Shocked, I could hardly believe it. My brother, who had always shown exceptional talent since childhood, graduated from a top university and worked for a well-known company, earning high social regard. Proud of him, I had always boasted about him to others, but the news of his company's bankruptcy filled me with deep concern. Having lost his job and unable to afford the rent for his previous apartment, my brother decided to stay at our family home until he found new employment. While he apologized, looking downcast, Kate showed a slight attitude of discontent. My mother was overjoyed to have my long-absent brother back, and we all warmly welcomed them. With a promise to repay me later, I agreed to temporarily support my brother and his wife's livelihood. While the sudden change was bewildering, it was a moment that made me realize the importance of supporting each other as a family. Although I needed to focus more on my work, I never imagined that living with my brother and his wife, Kate, would significantly change my daily life. Since my brother and his wife returned home, he has been going out for job interviews almost every day, and he is rarely at home during the daytime. For most of the time, my mother spent her days in bed and seldom left her room. While I was immersed in work in my own room, the door slowly opened without any warning. Startled by the sudden opening of the door, I stopped my work and turned toward it. There stood Kate with a displeased expression. Good morning, Kate. What can I do for you?" Kate sighed heavily before speaking. "What do you mean, what can I do for you? Where is my breakfast?" I replied, "Breakfast. It's prepared in the living room." I prepare breakfast daily, considering my mother's health. How can you expect me to eat something so tasteless? Make it again, quickly. I was astonished by her unreasonable demand as she barged into my room without even knocking. Despite being my sister-in-law, I couldn't let her say anything she wanted and firmly responded to her demand. I am currently working and do not have the time to cook. If the meal I prepared does not suit your taste, feel free to use the kitchen yourself. This response seemed to offend Kate, who became even more confrontational. Why should I, a guest, have to cook, and your so-called work is just playing on the computer? I felt quite angry at her dismissive view of my profession. Standing up, I approached Kate with a stern look. What? It seemed that Kate felt intimidated by my angered demeanor. Please stop. As I've said, I am working. If you're dissatisfied with your meal, prepare it yourself. After stating this, I escorted Kate out of the room, pushing her out as she protested, "What do you mean by this?" and locked the door. What is going on? I was focused on my work, needing to earn a living for my brother's family when this disturbance occurred. With growing concerns about our future, I returned to my work. Later, Kate ceased her overt selfishness but began using my personal items without permission. From skincare products on the vanity to makeup items and hair treatments in the bathroom, she deliberately chose to use mine. While I'm not particularly obsessive about cleanliness, I felt a strong discomfort at her using my belongings, including cosmetics, without permission and repeatedly asked her to refrain. When I say, "Kate, you've been using my cosmetics recently without asking, could you please stop?" She responded dismissively as if ignoring my request. "I'm just using what's on the vanity. If you don't want it used, keep it in your room. Besides, you don't need such cosmetics when you're working from home, right?" Angered by Kate's rude response, I realized arguing was futile and decided to keep all my belongings in my room. Yet, Kate began sneaking into my room to use my items when I wasn't around. Her actions escalated, and she started using my cherished bags and clothes without permission. No matter how much I protested, Kate's behavior remained unchanged, leaving me feeling helpless. In this situation, I considered seeking help from my brother, but he was consumed with his efforts to find a new job. Seeing him return home with a face full of disappointment and fatigue after unsuccessful interviews, I couldn't bring myself to add to his worries, so I kept silent. Amid the ongoing stress with Kate, I was suddenly faced with a 2 to 3 day business trip. Feeling responsible for my mother's daily care, I initially wanted to decline the trip. However, the company requesting my presence was a long-term business partner since the beginning of my freelance career, making it difficult to refuse. After sharing my concerns with my mother and brother, they encouraged me, despite my worries. "Don't worry, the helper will be here. Focus on your work," my mother assured me, while my brother said, "It's just 2 to 3 days. I have interviews, but I'll try to stay home as much as possible. So go ahead without worrying." Encouraged by their words, I decided to go on the 2-night, 3-day business trip. When I returned home with haste, I was greeted by the sight of my bedridden mother and only Kate remaining. On the day I was to return, my brother had an unavoidable job interview with a company, so he had been away since the previous day. I thought Kate was not the type to do housework, merely spending her time at home. So I was surprised when I returned home after stopping by the supermarket. Upon arriving home and temporarily placing my belongings, I proceeded to my room, only to be utterly shocked by what I saw. What in the world is this? My room was empty, as if nothing had ever been there. Essential equipment for my job, books placed on my desk, and even the clothes and bags stored in my closet had all vanished. In this unbelievable situation, I could only stand there dumbfounded, but then I heard laughter from behind me. Turning around, I saw Kate laughing as if enjoying the situation. "Look, your room is so tidy and clean now," she said. I asked her, "Kate, what on earth is going on here?" "Go look at the garden," she suggested. Confused, I looked out the window to the garden, where I saw my belongings messily abandoned and soaked. I was speechless and overwhelmed with anger at this shocking situation. Yet, despite my anger, Kate continued to criticize me. Aren't you ashamed of still living at your parents' house without getting married? You should become independent soon. Unable to tolerate her harsh words, I reached my breaking point. I decided to move forward with a plan I had been considering. Indeed, it is somewhat embarrassing to still be living at home at my age. I plan to leave this house next month. I responded to Kate, harboring anger inside. I'll be happy to see you go. Finally, I'll be free from living with you. Kate could not hide her joy. The feeling is mutual. Living with you has been stressful, so this is a good outcome for both of us. My words seemed to touch a nerve, and she glared at me, saying, "Get out of here soon," before leaving the room. After she left, I quickly went outside to the garden. My belongings had likely been thrown out there the day before. After last night's rain, they were covered in mud. First, I checked if my computer and other essential work equipment were still functional. Fortunately, all these devices were working correctly, so my work was not affected. I need to think about my living situation next. I had been considering buying a new residence for a while. The current house was aging and not suitable, especially for my mother, who required care. I had planned to move to a new home once my savings reached a certain amount. I had discussed this plan with my mother beforehand, but she was worried and did not see the necessity, not wanting to burden me. However, to repay my mother and escape living with Kate, I contacted the real estate agency I had been considering. Days passed, and when my brother found a new job, I discussed Kate's actions with my mother and brother. They were angry at Kate's behavior and promised to support me. My brother had been critical of Kate's behavior and began considering divorce after this incident. To be honest, I've been fed up with her usual behavior. She didn't try to find a job and kept being selfish. I didn't realize she was capable of something this terrible. I deeply regret overlooking it. My brother expressed his remorse. "There's no need for you to apologize," I reassured him, and he expressed his gratitude. Eventually, our family discussed and decided on the moving plans. All that remained was to set a specific date for the move. One day, while planning the move to our new life, we learned that Kate was planning a trip with her friends. We decided to use this opportunity to move. After seeing Kate off at the door on the day of her trip, we quickly started the moving process. Since we had already sent most of our belongings to the new home, only large furniture and appliances remained. While unpacking at the new house, Kate urgently called my brother's phone. "What should we do?" When my brother asked, I decided to answer the call on his behalf. "Hello." From the other end of the phone, I could feel Kate's intense anger. "What are you doing?" When I got back home, everything was gone. "And why are you answering my husband's phone?" "Where is Tom?" "He is here, but do you need something?" "Need something?" When I got back, everything was gone except for mine. "What is this situation?" "We've moved to a new house as a family," I explained. "What?" Kate was confused and could not grasp the situation. "Kate, you told me to leave the family home, didn't you?" "We just followed your instruction. I only told you to leave, not everyone. But you didn't specify that I should move out alone." Realizing the gravity of her own words, Kate faltered. "I didn't specify alone, but how could you afford a new home? Tom only recently got a job, so where did the money come from?" "I covered all the costs myself," I interjected. "You might not know, but my current job is quite reputable, and I earn enough to buy a house." "Really? But your job is just typing on a keyboard." "It may seem like that to you, but actually, my profession provides enough to support the family." Kate truly believed that I was just typing on a keyboard and dependent on the family. Through this conversation, she realized how disadvantageous her position was. Then Kate changed her tone, seemingly asking for help. "Anna, I deeply regret my past mistakes. I didn't know you were such an accomplished person. I wish you had told me that from the beginning." I expressed my indignation at her sudden change of heart. "Asking for forgiveness now is a joke. What you did, scattering my belongings and all, is unforgivable. You'll fully compensate for everything. I truly regret it. So, can I have your new address first?" "There's no way I'll tell you that." I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore, and just so you know, I'm aware of the affair you've been hiding from my brother." Kate gasped. Indeed, during a conversation with the three of us, my brother told me about Kate's affair. Since returning to the family home, Kate had been in an affair with a former high school classmate, using my cosmetics without permission to go out. The trip she planned on the day of the move was supposedly with her affair partner. Realizing that everything had been exposed, Kate couldn't argue, and silence returned to the other end of the phone. "A completed divorce paper is left for you. Please sign it." With those words, I ended the call. Later, our old family home was set for demolition. Kate continued to live there but eventually had to leave due to the demolition. Thus, the couple went through with the divorce. Kate's affair was exposed, and she was faced with a substantial compensation demand, and I was able to claim additional compensation for my belongings. Kate, who had never worked seriously, had no savings to pay the compensation and ultimately had to rely on her own parents, who decided to cut ties with her after hearing from my brother. As a result, Kate was burdened with a huge debt and lived alone in a cheap apartment, juggling multiple part-time jobs. We started our life in the new house as a family of 3, living happily. My mother was delighted that the family was living together under one roof again. "Hey, Dina, have you washed these sheets properly? They smell like you," said my father-in-law as he laid on the sheets. If we had lived together, I might have experienced such bizarre scenes every day. Just the thought of it gives me the shivers. The divorce that resulted from this living arrangement marked the start of my new life. I am Dina. I am 60 years old and divorced. Others may think differently, but I believe that at 60, I still have a lot ahead of me. I taught myself how to use a computer, which was once a challenge, by reading books. I always want to be an enthusiastic woman who doesn't give up because of her age. Compete with the younger ones? No, I am still young, actually. But even I have faced tough times. The incident happened when I finally finished paying off the house mortgage. This was over a decade ago. I had contributed to the purchase of the house with my husband, Jim, in our 20s, and we had just finished paying off the mortgage. Jim said, "Maybe we should consider living together?" "What do you mean by that?" "You know what I mean. Living with my parents. I've said this many times, but it's a bit difficult." "Why?" "To be honest, I don't think your mother likes me very much. Living together would be hard for both her and me. The way things are now is best." "That might be true, but we won't know unless we try," said Jim. "Once we start living together, it won't be easy to stop, will it? You always seem to shy away from challenges." "Challenges, huh?" Ever since we got married, he often suggested living with his parents. Before marriage, he was firmly against cohabitation, so I felt relieved. But after marriage, he gradually started saying living together might be nice. It's like a scam. I later found out that his mother often told him, "What will you do when we get old?" It's worrying. Before I knew it, Jim started feeling a strange sense of duty, thinking living together is my responsibility as a son, a way of loving my parents. I wish he'd feel that not living together is also his responsibility as a husband. I think it's important to care for his parents, but he keeps insisting on living together even though I don't get along with his mother. Holding back my emotions, my relationship with my thoughtless has been gradually worsened, but he seemed completely unconcerned. As the remaining amount on our house mortgage decreased, his suggestions for living together with his parents intensified. I had ignored his words until then, but this was a warning sign. Feeling an impending sense of crisis, one day, I went to the door at the sound of the intercom and was shocked when I opened it. "Hello," said my smiling mother-in-law and father-in-law, standing there. It was 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning. The sunlight illuminated their smiling faces. It was like a holy scene. But that couldn't be so. Stunned by their sudden visit, I stood there frozen. Then Jim appeared behind me, welcomed them with "welcome back," and led them inside. "Wait, welcome back? What's going on? Aren't visitors supposed to say excuse us, and the hosts, please come in? Then Jem's familiar words came to mind. Let's live together with my parents. This was bad. Confused, I followed them into the house. Then, I saw my mother-in-law carefully examining the china cabinet. What are you doing? I asked impulsively. Look at this scratch. It's a pity to buy a new one, but doesn't it bother you, Dina? Aren't you a bit careless? I wish you'd use it more carefully. What? I chose this. I looked at the spot she was observing, but couldn't see any scratches. Maybe she saw the wood grain as scratches because of presbyopia? But I have presbyopia too, and I don't see it that way. However, my mother-in-law has always made such baseless accusations against me. Maybe she just can't like me because I stole her son, but I'm not convinced either. Well, I'll just let it slide as usual. Then I realized I couldn't see my father-in-law. Hearing a noise from upstairs, I went up with a bad feeling. And there he was, lying on my bed instead of my husband's, face down. I screamed in surprise. And without any shame, he said, "Oh, Dina, are the sheets clean? They smell like you," and laughed. Wait. You absolutely can't do this. Please stop that. I blurted out without any hesitation. What? What do you mean by that? Why are you, a daughter-in-law, being so impudent? Shouted my father-in-law. It's not about being a daughter-in-law. Why are you sniffing around in someone else's bed? I raised my voice. I'm just checking if they've been washed properly. There's absolutely no need for that. I strongly argued back. No, it's necessary. As someone who will live in this house, it's an essential check. What? What are you talking about? I really don't understand what you mean, I said, confused. The thought of living with such a disrespectful daughter-in-law worries me. Living together. I was shocked and lost for words. Suddenly, my husband Jim and my mother-in-law appeared before me. I wondered why it was so noisy. And here you are, said Jim. Jim, your father says he's going to live with us. Is that true? I asked my husband. Yes, exactly as it sounds, Jim answered. What? Really? The house mortgage is going to be finally paid off this month, right? Yes, that's right, but... So, I've decided that we'll live here with my parents. What? Why would you decide such a major thing on your own? No, I've been asking about living together for a while now. I told you firmly oppose it. I can't accept living under the same roof as someone who sniffs other people's sheets. I argued strongly. Did you say that? I clenched my fists, feeling a mix of surprise and anger. Besides, I've been seeing another girl for a while now. So, I don't really need to live with you. What? That's unbelievable. Well, anyone would prefer a young and cute girl over a wife who won't live with her in-laws. I wondered what he was talking about, but there was more to be shocked about. If you don't like it, that's fine. Once the mortgage is paid off, we don't need you anymore, my mother-in-law said with a smile. What? I asked again in shock. That's right. You're no longer needed. Now get out. My father-in-law said, grinning and gesturing as if shooing away a dog. So, I was just a tool to help with mortgage payments to them for a long time. Jim's income alone was uncertain, and both incomes were needed to get a new house and pay off the mortgage quickly. My mother-in-law had endured her son's marriage to me, always hoping for and waiting to be able to live together. Once the mortgage was paid off, she probably thought she could live with her son again. To them, I was useful like a servant until no longer needed. The more I understood the situation, the angrier I became. I regretted not doing anything until it got to that point. But the house was also important to me. There was no reason for me to be cornered like this. But wait a minute. A sudden idea flashed in my mind, and a light shone in my heart that was filled with despair and irritation. All right, let's all live together. What? My quick response surprised Jim and my mother-in-law the most. They might have thought I would leave easily, but they were taken aback by my unexpected answer. A life with a husband, his affair partner, and in-laws sounds fun, doesn't it? My mother-in-law and Jim's reactions to my statement were so funny that I laughed. But of course, that was just a joke. Who would live together? Of course, I'm leaving. I said. They probably didn't expect me to leave so easily. They must have thought I would beg to stay. Jim was unsettled until the moment I left the house, but I ignored him and eventually finalized our divorce. About a month later, having lost the house and enjoying my free time in a hotel after the divorce, I received a call from my ex-mother-in-law. I really need to see you, she said, though it seemed troublesome. I had a hunch, so I agreed to meet her. When I arrived at the cafe for our appointment, there sat my former in-laws with gloomy faces. As soon as they saw me, my mother-in-law tearfully said, "Dina, thank you for coming." Well, the whole family gathered. "What do you need from your ex-daughter-in-law?" We received a notice yesterday about the division of property. Of course, we're divorced, so we need to discuss property division properly, right? Did you think I wouldn't respond? What? Well, but the situation has changed now. The situation? I repeated the question, and Jim's dejected figure seemed even more disheartened. Jim's company has finally gone bankrupt. Is that so? I thought that might happen. I clapped my hands and said with a smile, I knew it. Dina, what do you mean by I knew it? Jim's income has been decreasing year by year, and last month, there was a delay in his salary payment. That's a sign of a company going under. Such a thing happened. Jim, why didn't you say anything? My mother-in-law's face was filled with anger towards her son. Jim let out a small leap and looked frightened. Well, I never thought the company would fail. People usually notice such things. You're just ignorant, I sharply pointed out, and Jim looked up in surprise, saying what? Immediately, I asked everyone, so, you all gathered here to tell me that Jim has lost his job and can't contribute to the property division? Surely that's not the case, right? Everyone was at a loss for words. Well, Jem was the first to speak up. Our house burned down. What? The house, it burned down. I get that. But how did it happen? It was Dad's cigarette. Huh. Ha ha ha. Living with your parents led to a huge loss. Huh? That stuff. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. I had anticipated Jim losing his job. When divorcing, I thought to myself, I don't want to support such an irresponsible, unemployed husband, and living with his parents would bring more problems. There are also issues when caring for the elderly. So, divorcing was the best choice for me. But I never imagined that his father would burn down the house. This could be the perfect opportunity to speak. A mischievous idea awakened in me. Haha, I'm sorry, but it must be really tough for you. Since Dad and Mom left their home, they have nowhere to live and we don't know what to do. Jim said, truly unemployed and homeless now. Please stop saying things like that. I'm also living in a hotel at the moment, so I'm practically homeless too. But that will change soon as I'm about to get my own place. Really? Everyone was surprised at my news of purchasing a new home. Just the reaction I expected. You know that high-rise apartment near the station? I'm moving there soon. A high-rise apartment. Jim's and my in-laws' faces changed completely. Maybe a high-rise apartment is everyone's dream? For me, I chose it just because it has good security. I wasn't interested in higher floors and chose a lower one to avoid the stress of waiting for elevators. What? We want to live there, too. Dina, can we live with you? Please. Forget everything that happened before. Really, Dina? I'm asking to. As expected, my in-laws shamelessly asked to live in the ex-daughter-in-law's house. Their audacity was astounding. Could it be that my father-in-law planned to burn down the apartment as well? I'd like to help, but after all, I was just an unnecessary existence for you all. Just a wallet for mortgage payments. As I spoke sarcastically, my in-laws hurriedly started praising me. We've always admired your housekeeping skills. You certainly brighten up the home. You're thoughtful and beautiful. In contrast, our son was spoiled and grew up to be unemployed, and we can't handle him. Their only son, my ex-husband, was speechless watching them. Even a beloved son becomes unnecessary if he lacks the ability to support them. Such cruel parental thinking. Hey, Living with so many people might not be bad, I said, and Jim and his parents looked surprised. It might be lively. Dina, what do you mean? Jim asked. Oh, I mean just what I said. As I smiled kindly, everyone's faces brightened. It's just, it might be a bit awkward to live with a divorced husband again. As I said this, my mother-in-law responded, Oh, that's true. Don't worry about it. Jim doesn't need to live with you, she said cheerfully. What? Jim was shocked. That's right. Jim can live somewhere else. We can live together with you. My father-in-law chimed in. Wait a minute, Dad, Mom. Why are you leaving me out? Jim protested. Because we can pay Dina for food with our pension, but you can't, his father explained. So, they planned to possibly live in the high-rise apartment and only paid for meals. I was about to say that, but chose to remain silent and observe the family discord I had instigated. Go ahead, fools, play right into my hands. Then, if you both are receiving pensions, you should find another place to live. We can't afford such wastefulness without a job, not knowing what our future holds. What future are you talking about? You're already in your twilight years. You're an elderly couple with unsteady feet. How rude. We're still healthy. If you're healthy, find a job and use that income for the future. I can't even take a bath or go to job interviews in my current state. Clean yourself in the river. You're always thinking only for yourself. What? You're saying that when you don't do it yourself, you're a failure, an arsonist. Who's the failure? You, the useless son, unemployed and worthless. We don't need you. We're cutting ties. That's fine. I'd rather not have parents who disregard their son. During this family argument, tension filled the air between Jim and his parents. My mother-in-law, in a soft voice, tried to calm my father-in-law. You don't really mean to cut ties, do you? However, Jim's firm stance only fueled his father's anger further, and he refused to retract his decision to sever ties with him. Moreover, my father-in-law jokingly said to me, This makes the room bigger, huh? His words hinted that he had fully accepted a new life in the high-rise apartment, planning to live in my home. I asked with a bit of sarcasm, Can't you misunderstanding something? Everyone looked at me in surprise. The size of the room hasn't changed from the beginning. I have no intention of living with you all, I calmly stated. What do you mean by that, Dina? Asked my father-in-law. I replied indifferently, It doesn't have any deep meaning. I just said that having many people around would make life lively. Nothing more, nothing less. At that moment, my mother-in-law objected, What? But from your words, it felt like you were considering living with us. I raised my voice slightly. It's quite interesting to see you two so easily choose life in a high-rise apartment over your son. Jim always disregarded my opinions and wanted to live with you, but what about now? Isn't it time to realize how unreasonable your proposals have been, Jim? Can't you see the reality even after your house has burned down? Then Jim looked at his parents with deep anger. Indeed, you're right, Dina. I believed in giving back to my parents, but it seems they never thought the same of me. Wait, Jim. My in-laws couldn't hide their surprise at his statement. Jim, I was wrong. Let's forget the estrangement. So, Father, you just want to rely on your son because you can't live in my house, right? What? No, that's not it. Do you really think so? You seem clearly unsettled. As I smiled and said this, my father-in-law began to panic. Seeing this, Jim's anger became more apparent. I don't need such parents. Estrangement it is. Jim shouted angrily, and his parents begged frantically, Please listen, but he wouldn't hear them. Instead, he turned to me. Thanks to you, I've come to realize I want to start over. What, really? Yes, I'm serious. You did all this to wake me up, right? Haha. Stop it. That's too convenient for you. What, why? I just thought it might be fun to see someone who abandoned his wife to get along with his parents now struggling with them. What? You're just an object of property division to me now. What? Property division? You really plan to demand that in this situation? This situation? That's irrelevant. It's obvious. I signed the divorce papers quickly to leave the house, but property division can still be claimed after divorce, so I intend to take it seriously. Wait, hey, don't you love me anymore? What charm could someone without an address or a stable job possibly have? Your head's empty too. I can't believe it. Later, unable to reconcile with me, Jim raged at his parents. This is all your fault. Before the police arrived, I left the scene. And then, I did exactly as I said and pursued the property division. Honestly, it wasn't a large amount, but it marked the complete end of my relationship with Jim. Jim, now without an address or job, struggled with reduced savings due to the property division and became estranged from his parents. He seems to be living a wandering life, moving from various places, doing odd jobs daily, staying in cheap lodgings, sometimes even sleeping in parks. Unable to find stable work due to his age, he's leading a nomadic life. His parents didn't repair their relationship with their son and decided to live on their pension alone, essentially disowning him. They have always been a couple only concerned with themselves. Meanwhile, I have been living a relatively affluent life due to my investment activities I started before the divorce. Recently, I began attending a local programming school to improve my computer skills. I'm the only one in my age group, but I'm surrounded by children, making me feel like I have many grandchildren. Though I never had children, I find warmth in being surrounded by children in this way. A primary school girl named Tracy seems interested in knitting, and I sometimes teach her during breaks at the school. Watching her and other children join in knitting together brings a smile to my face. Despite a life full of ups and downs, I plan to continue living a life that's true to myself.